Welcome to each of you. I'm Laurie Schreiner. I chair the Department of Higher Education here at APU. We are delighted to have you with us. And as I say twice a year on these events, this is my favorite day to see the good work, the culmination of work well done by our doctoral students. There's nothing better. And I'm always reminded of scriptures that tell us what these events are like and what they mean for us. And I think of the passage in Ephesians chapter 2:10 that says, we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works which God prepared in advance for us to do. And I think of the work that our graduates have done, and some translations say you are God's masterpiece. And that's how we see our graduates, is they are truly a masterpiece designed by God to do good work, and you're going to see the fruit of some of that work. And as John 17:4 says, I have brought you glory on earth by completing the work you gave me to do. And so we have students here tonight who've completed that work, and we celebrate that with them. So part of being a community of scholars and disciples at APU is being on a journey together. And so for 10 of our students, this marks the culmination of a long journey, but it also represents a destination of a journey for some students who just began this program. And so I actually want to give a shout out to our EDD students in the 2018 cohort. Stand. They just began in June, and then our Ph.D. cohort, 2018, is in the house, just started this week. And of course, we also have to recognize the cohort that just finished classes this week and are headed into dissertation, so a big shout out to the 2015 cohort. So tonight we're going to feature and celebrate the research of our doctoral students, and that they have spent years working on research that is rigorous, that integrates theory and practice, and that we think applies to the issues facing higher education and that we hope makes a difference in the world. That's the kind of research that we do in our doctoral programs at APU. And we could not accomplish that kind of journey without our gifted and dedicated faculty, and I want to recognize them at this time. First, Dr. Karen Longman, who is director of the Ph.D. program. Dr. Alex Jun. Dr. Chris Collins. Dr. Tabitha Jones-Jolivet. Dr. Young Kim. Dr. Michelle Lewis. And Dr. Eileen Holm. And so we also could not pull off an event this big without the tireless dedication and creativity of our staff. And so I particularly want to offer a big thank you to Monica Ariano, to Lacey Tanis, Star Cruz. Thank you so much. And our student worker, Amy Cardenas, this is her last time with us. She's been through many of these hooding ceremonies, working behind the scenes. And so I want to give a big shout out to her and to our grad assistant, Afton Witten.
To kick the evening off, we're going to have Dr. Meg Dumez make her presentation about mission and money and adult degree learning programs at an institution. To introduce you to Meg, if you don't know her, I'm going to give you 3 descriptive words just so you can frame in your mind who she is. She is creative, Meg is persistent, and she's brilliant. When she began the program, I heard her name first, not because I had her in class, and not because I crossed paths with her in the hall, but because my wife was the doctoral writing coach for the program. And Meg submitted every single paper she ever wrote to the doctoral writing coach before she turned it in for class. So she has a lot of endurance, and she's very thorough, and she's going to make a 7-minute presentation to you to show you her findings from the study. Please welcome Dr. Meg Dumez.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. Really, my study is all about trying to figure out how to serve students, how to love students, and how we do that well. It took me a long time to finally understand what a theoretical framework is, so new students, you'll get there. And mine came out of this book called Mission and Money. It was trying to understand the balance between mission good and money good. How do we keep the lights on, and how do we have a purpose in doing so? And at the same time, I also had kind of this emotional foundation. There's a question that comes up in an episode from this television show that asks, do we make the music for the money, or do we make the money for the music? And I thought about that with our students. What are we balancing? What are we focusing on? Why are we doing this? So to answer that, I wanted to think about what we're balancing. Maybe some of you feel like you're juggling so many things, so many plates, so many balls, so many things that are on fire. We are. And to do that, you go into something small. You look at one thing. For me, I wanted to look at these questions at one school. So I used a case study approach, and I wanted to understand, how are we serving our students? How are we fulfilling our money needs? And to do that, I want to talk to a lot of different people by focusing at one school, because there's so many different pieces to our balancing, to our juggling. And this was the map that I started with. This is where all the places that my lovely literature review went to figure out, oh my gosh, it's a complicated world. And I just wanted to answer, how do we serve our students and why are we serving them? And all the different pieces I wanted to understand among traditional students and adult higher education, and bring that down and connect them to the mission good and money good sides of this. My methodology, one school. Wanted to go deep, wanted to go complex, wanted to be able to study the mosaic of one place, a school that I would eventually call Pacific Christian University. That is the hardest part of this process, ladies and gentlemen, is coming up with a fake name and fake motto for your school. I'll explain why it mattered. So, site selection, here's all my reasons. You can read my dissertation if you want to. And I wanted to talk to all the different people I could. They all mattered. I wanted to get these different perspectives. So, Pacific Christian University, I Googled it, it was safe. And authentic community is the motto that I came up with them, and then realized it was a motto of my church. Whoops. Talked to 38 people, made 15 different visits to 2 campuses, their adult campus and their traditional campus, over the course of their spring semester. Campus visits, class visits, tours, cute squirrels. I was on a roll, so cute. They were squirrels. It's the thing with my mom and I. So what I was looking at in my findings after all of these different pieces is that there was a balance. That was what the whole look at, is how do we balance between mission good and money good. And this particular school is unique in higher education. They are rocking it as far as enrollment and money and so many good things that was not expected when I went into it thinking Christian higher education, having troubles. Not Pacific Christian University, which was really fun to talk to all these optimistic, hopeful people. So for them, money is not a problem right now. They are doing great financially. Instead of mission good, I ended up redefining it, motto good, because that's what they knew. Their motto, a simple phrase that I rephrased as authentic community, that was what they knew. They didn't know the complexity in the same way. It wasn't what was driving them. What was driving them was a third piece that came into this, what I, in my mind, viewed as like that little scale you do when you're at the doctor's office and hating every second of it. Innovation. That was their watchword. That was their key idea, what was driving them, what was adding things into their future, and how they were finding the balance between who we are and how are we going to financially support who we are and who we want to be in the future. So that was really the key theme that came out and wasn't expected, which is always what you want. As my chair said, you're looking for the outliers and the outright liars. And this was an outlying thing for me, and so it was really fun to dive into and talk to people I wasn't planning on. So when I came back to my questions, when I came back to the research questions that drove this, I came to the motto, for the institution. That was really how they identified themselves, their core purpose. And it was driving a lot of their identity and values. How could they be authentic community for their students, for their faculty? That was what the official pursuit was. And from a lot of the different perspectives, it was occurring usually within a smaller segment, not necessarily the entire university was within their major, within their program, within their residence hall, not my school, my university knows me. And that's something I've experienced myself in different places. So I redid my map, mostly just realizing it went many more directions, and that I needed, for the university I studied, it was innovation, but all of our universities are going to have something different. I remember Dr. Holmes speaking at one point about how we need to have our hedgehog, something that we are focusing on. So that part's a little bit is blank because I don't know what your school might be. And the piece I wanted to emphasize for implication for practice is something really simple, but communication. At the university that I studied, when I was talking to people about their adult higher education program, I was told it's a cash cow, it's a drain on our finances, it's doing okay. They don't even know. It was amazing, and that seemed to be in a couple other places as well. That was definitely the most striking, is that they didn't know how they were doing financially in different parts of their own university. So just that importance of not only talking about your identity, but also talking about the finances, being honest about what's going on, what the strengths are, and what some of the weaknesses are, so that you know which way you're trying to head. And I end every presentation I do, every time I teach, with a so what. Why do we care? And that's why I wanted to end this part as well, is the why do I care about this? Why do we care about this one school that's doing well? Yay. And we care because it's one story, and one story matters. And I would hope that in the future you might go back to your own university and think, how are we keeping the lights on, and why are we keeping the lights on? I have a lot of people. I can't draw, but I can Pinterest. So who were part of this journey for me that I am grateful for, including the fact that the show is on in the middle of the night when you're doing homework. And just wanted to recognize that some of them are here this evening, that I have family members who have shown me unconditional love and patience during this process and didn't do the wave or boo during my presentation. Thank you. I had a dissertation committee, Dr. Chris Collins, Dr. Karen Longman, and Dr. Tony Pauls, that stretched me in ways I didn't ever expect, in good ways, that are going to make me a better scholar and practitioner and educator in the future. I also have what I dubbed a dissertation community, and this is something I would tell students who are starting their dissertation process. You need a village, and you need a lot of different people in the village. My committee was the academics, was the knowledge. My community, I gave them 3 things I asked of them. Pray for me, come to my graduation, and hold me accountable, which was basically just check in about once a week, either in person or text. What have you done in your dissertation this week? And I promised that they didn't have to understand any of my answers. They just had to ask. It was excellent, and I am grateful to them for being here this evening. I have a cohort members. We called ourselves the Baker's Dozen, and that's because we started in 2013, not because there's 13 of us. We confused every professor. But for laughter, for stories, for going through this adventure together. For my home community, it's my Bible study group back in Portland. At one point, they made me a quilt that I sleep under every single night that just represents their love for me in this process, and I'm so grateful. To my former coworkers, the academic advisors who worked with me, because we just want to serve students. Not politics, not any of the other stuff. We just want to serve students. And to God for being present in all of this through the darkness and the light. And there's a lot of both in this, and so it's good to have, like I said, you need to have a village, and other duties is assigned. The people that I knew there would be too many to name, so it's just those who have encouraged or put up with me, whatever way I was that day or minute, and really just embodied this button that I was given during my case study by one of the staff members, that broken crayons still color, and helped me to remember that in so many different ways through this. So I am grateful for all of them. I am grateful that I got to start this program and that I get to finish it.
Congratulations. I'm Alex John, and I have the privilege of introducing the next 4 speakers. We have lots of qualitative dissertations that are coming your way, so this is good for us. The first person is Dr. Allison Ash. And Allison, yes? Baker's Dozen. That's 2013. I just found that out. Okay. Allison has been working with me for the last several years as a research assistant on my team. We've published books together, articles together. I think she has the most publications of a student that I've seen in the program in many years, so that's wonderful. But she is going to share with us with a prophetic voice. So please, with attentive ears, let us welcome Dr. Allison Ash.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you everyone for being here. This study was important to me because I want to help make Christian higher education a better place. And Christianity has a long and complex history of race and oppression, over 500 years. And Christian higher education historically has represented that complexity. A lot of the theology that supported racist institutions like slavery and segregation were the foundation of our Christian higher education institutions. So we've had a lot of work to do with regard to racial justice. So it's not surprising, given that history, that Christian higher education actually has fallen behind secular schools when it comes to diversity and social justice. And those who have sought to make changes in these institutions have been people of color and typically not white Christians leading the way. So in an attempt to change this trajectory, I wanted to study white people who were trying to make a change in Christian higher education regarding racial justice. So in all research, there's typically a question that guides your study. So the research question that guided my study is, how does engagement in racial justice advocacy among white administrators function in Christian higher education environments? So my study had a conceptual framework of critical white studies, which meant that I was looking at whiteness with a critical lens. A constructivist grounded theory meant that I was trying to actually create a theory, an original theory from the data as I studied it. And I looked at 17 different people from 11 institutions who were nominated by their peers as having been active in racial justice advocacy to find out, how is this functioning and what are they doing? And the findings resulted in a theory and a corresponding model that you see here. So this is an original theory titled The Ecology of White Anti-Racism. And the model is supposed to represent an ocean with different stages and features that represent the anti-racism work that these administrators were doing. The first stage, illumination, represents white people actually becoming aware of the racial injustice that is actually underneath the surface of the ocean. The next area is calling, which was the idea that the white administrators connected their faith to this new illumination and decided to actually engage in trying to make a change. The next step was shelter. Just as a submarine shelters its inhabitants from the pressures around it, the white administrators, when they were doing this work, were, from their own privilege, actually sheltered in this work, and they didn't actually experience the same racism and the same difficulties that the people were around them. And then the engagement is represented by different levels of the ocean, and the deeper one went in their engagement, the greater the pressure, the more systemic changes they were attempting to make, but at the surface, those were different levels. And then the resistance are the currents that stopped the forward flow of the work that these administrators were doing, and those were external factors, like their institution, that were hindering some of their work. And then the last is buoyancy. Just as a submarine naturally wants to float to the surface, these administrators often naturally wanted to disengage from the work that they were doing when things got hard. So there were a lot of positive things that happened in this work. But I'm going to, having looked at this work and the data through a critical lens, through critical white studies, there were also some challenges. And I don't have time to address all the great things and all the challenges I saw, so I'm just going to address one of the challenges that I saw. And that has to do with the actual engagement. Above that first dotted line, you see the words increase contact and provide support. That was the engagement that these administrators were doing to say, I want to help students of color, colleagues of color, faculty of color who are struggling and having a hard time being maybe in a predominantly white institution. And so we see this from quotes from like William that said, I always try to seek out students of color who I mentor and help build leadership skills. And then Brad said, I see myself as a support for people of color. I want to be an ally. I don't want them to feel isolated or unsupported. And the way that I looked at this through a critical lens was that below the dotted line, there were only a couple people who said, not only do I want to support people who might be struggling on our campus, but I want to change the actual systems that are causing the problems in the first place. So that was very few people actually talked about changing the systems. So as they were speaking about helping students of color, the problem and the critical way that I looked at that was to say that often, in my estimation, created deficit thinking, which is the idea that it's the people who are struggling, there are internal deficiencies that they have to create these struggles. Instead of saying, we have to actually change the system that's making the struggles happen. And that led to what scholars have called benevolent racism, which is the idea that even when trying to help and make changes, there can still be a proliferation of racism that's occurring on campus. So what I'm proposing is that there will be an actual change in mindset among the white Christians, and that is actually seeing our own unconscious biases and the ways that we actually need to change ourselves. At the very deepest level of the ocean, that's where the pressure's the greatest, that's where things get the hardest. But what I'm proposing is that is how we actually have to make lasting change to make the systemic changes around us. And I just want to end with a quote that I have from my dissertation, because as a white person myself who is seeking racial justice change, I understand that this is something that I need to practice as well. So I say at the end of my dissertation, until I can look in the mirror and see that clergy member who supported and defended the institution of slavery, I run the risk of remaining blind to the evils that exist in the systems around me and in my own heart that would tempt me to sit comfortably in the benefits of their structures. So I'm proposing that we dismantle the idea of racism and injustice from Christian minds, and that we raise awareness about current forms of injustice that still exist. So I would like to thank many people, and I know Lori always says we have as much time as we want for this section, so you might want to just get comfortable. I'd like to first thank my committee. Dr. Christopher Collins, thank you for your support and for just teaching me so much about what it means to construct meaning as I go along in this journey. And I will always carry that with me, that you helped me in that way. And Dr. Rebecca Hong, who's not here tonight, but she was also on my committee. Alex, I can count on one hand the amount of people, the people who have significantly changed my life, who have been teachers and mentors and pastors, and you're at the top of that list. You're an example of putting words into action. I would see a roadblock, and you would knock it down for me. You believed me often, many times more than I believed in myself, and then I started to see what you saw. But mostly, I appreciate your humility, your deep love for God, your love for your students, and the fact that you are changing thousands of lives through what you do. So thank you. My professors at APU, Lori, Karen, Eileen, Chris, Alex, Tabitha, I appreciated the work that we got to do together also in the classroom. And the Baker's Dozen, I'm a part of that cohort as well. Thank you to all of you for walking this journey. You will always all be like family to me, and I've so appreciated all the support that we've had. Amy and Carrie, I love you with all of my heart. You have been there literally every hour of every day. And we talk many times, several times a day, honestly, about this journey. And you have helped me in ways that I won't ever be able to describe. I love you. Thank you. And Terry and Sharon Hargrave, thank you for being here and opening your home. Terry and Sharon are therapists, so I got free therapy every 6 months. And I am not kidding, actually. Many times we sat in their living room, and Sharon would be like, I think Terry might be getting tired to go to bed, but we'll just talk a little longer, Alice. And she knew I needed it. But they saw me go through a lot in this process, and it was a refuge. It was like I would go there. It was just wonderful. I so appreciate your hospitality and opening your home. Sam Bang, who's here, who's a dear colleague and friend, and from Fuller Seminary when I was there, Sam said to me, Allison, you're not getting much younger, and if you ever want to do a PhD, you probably need to get started. So he actually is the reason that I applied and got the ball rolling, so I thank you. Nate, who's sitting next to him, brought me to APU in his car and helped me to get the ball rolling as well, so thank you, Nate. Carmen, for our breakfasts when I would come, for being my colleague at Fuller and seeing me and encouraging me along the way. I so appreciate that. To Jen and Ryan, who are here for your friendship. Jen, you helped me have an outlet for my creativity from the time I was, a baby. We've known each other for our whole lives, and I so appreciate you. We've always been at each other's most special moments, and thank you for being here. JGL, thank you. Jennifer Goodwin-Lyles, that's my name for her. Thank you for your patience and your encouragement. You gently teaching me on my own racial journey. You were there when I started asking really tough questions, and you answered them, the craziest ones that I had, when I can't even imagine the things that came out of my mouth sometimes, and you believed in me, and I so appreciate that. Thank you for being here tonight. To Leslie and Jim Hoyman, thank you for just all of your friendship in Wheaton. I did all my coursework while we were in each other's lives, and they were the kinds of friends that I would just walk into their house, not even knock sometimes, and just sit on the couch, and they would just listen to me talk about my dissertation and my coursework for hours. So thank you for being here all the way from Hawaii. And now to my family, to my mom. Mom, when you try to thank a mother, like it's almost impossible. So thank you just for everything that you've done, for giving me life and for being here, for learning with me. I've gone through so many phases and fads in my life, and you've always wanted to learn and be interested in me. Thank you. Marilyn, thank you for being here. My Aunt Marilyn, for being an example of a woman leader who is committed and generous. I am who I am as a leader today because of you and seeing your example. Thank you. To Emily and Josh, my siblings, thank you for being here. Thank you, Emily, for being my protector from the time I was a baby. Josh, for being my cheerleader and letting me beat you up when you were little, and I was a lot older than you were. So I got out a lot of my anger and aggression that way. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And Rebecca, for being here as well, and for all that you've done to support me, to my nieces. I want to give a special thank you to my in-laws who couldn't be here tonight. They actually were planning on it, but my mother-in-law is battling cancer, and she's not able to be here. And Tim and Linda, I love you, and thank you for all the sacrifices that you've made to help us with our kids in every way. Dad, you planted the seeds of curiosity in my heart when I was little, and you made me ask questions like, why does a eucalyptus tree shed its bark, and how do I prune trees with you on the job? And you put that in me and made me start asking questions, which led to me wanting to be a researcher. And so, Dad, I love you, and thank you for that. Thank you, Betty, for being here. And I'm almost done, thank you. Thank you to my relatives who had darker skin than I have, and who were abused and hated because of their skin color. And I am here because of you. And you were brave, and you fought in ways that I will never have to because of the way that I look. And I love you, and I wish you could be sitting in here with me, but I know you're up there seeing this, and this work is for you. Allie and Maddie, my daughters. I can see the future when I look at you. And I love you, and I can't imagine having been on this journey without you, and I know you can't imagine me not being a student, because I have been your whole life. So, thank you, and remember, when you fall down, what are you supposed to do? Get up and try again. They get really sick of me saying that, but that's one of the most important things you can learn in life. And Jeff, if in our vows, someone would have said, you are going to have to support your wife through a Ph.D. process, I think you might have thought twice about following through with the wedding. You have been my rock, and in our vows, you promised to be that for me, and you have been. I can't imagine this journey without you. We've been through a lot of good times and a lot of really, really hard times through this process, and you've never wavered in your love for me and your support, and I love you. Thank you. And I just want to end with, this was the picture of my family when I started this journey 5 years ago. Maddie was 1, Ellie was 3. I won't tell you how old I was or how old Jeff was, but I want you to look at how happy our faces look. Now, we look a lot more tired in that picture. This is us now, so a lot has changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ash. All right, well, we are moving right along here. Our next study is about high-achieving African-American males in higher education. What is it like? And it's great when you can actually have a high-achieving African-American male talk about high-achieving African-American males at institutions. So it's such a joy to have worked with you, Dr. Hamilton. What a privilege it is for me to have been your chair. And I'm just so excited that you're crossing the finish line now. All you have is this one victory lap. And as I like to say to all the students, when you're on your victory lap, just don't fall down. 7 minutes. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kevin Bernard Hamilton.
Dr. Ash, I said I wasn't going to cry towards the end, so I want to thank you. Try not to cry here. Good evening. So, grounded theory approach to high-achieving African-American male college students at dominantly white institutions. And to begin, so my problem is, how do they do it? For so long, we've been talking about low-achieving African-American male college students and what we could do to help them thrive at dominantly white institutions. And sometimes that worked and sometimes that didn't. And so the focus changed to high achieving. Maybe we can study high achieving African-American male college students and replicate what they do for all students at that institution. And so I looked at that, through critical race theory, which has 5 tenets, and 3 of those that I examined included counter-storytelling, the permanence of race, and then the whiteness of property. A lot of that had to do with the personal narratives of those individuals and how they thrived in an environment that wanted to maintain their level of whiteness, and as well as control race through politics, social, and economics. I also looked at this through a conceptual framework called niggering, which continues, and it's a harsh word, but it's a reality of what continues on our campus today. Being told that you won't accomplish much in life. The negative stereotypes that still exist in media in our society. And so these are the elements by which I use to analyze what it would take for high-achieving African-American male college students to thrive at a dominantly white institution. And so I knew that I wanted to help low-achieving African-American male college students. I knew that that was important to me. And so in my research, I found that Mr. Sean Harper examined high-achieving African-American male college students. And they had a GPA of 3.0 or better. They were campus leaders. They earned the admirations of their peers, the admirations of faculty and staff. They participated and were engaged on campus. They resisted racist stereotypes and low expectations that were often associated with black men. And so, we know what a high-achieving African-American male college student looks like, but how do they do it? That was the question that was pivotal. And so that led to what are the key factors and experiences of high-achieving African-American male college students? Some sub-questions: how are they engaged actively on campus? How are they involved on campus? And what resources did they take advantage of while they were on campus? And how did they resist racist stereotypes on campus? And then last, what are the factors that led to their placement on the dean's list? My methodology included the setting, which was a 4-year dominantly white institution in the South, nationally ranked, 100 years old. They had technical, bachelor's, master's, doctoral programs. And out of the 1,900 African-American male college students that graduated or that attended that institution, 300 of them were first-time undergrads. My sample was purposeful, and there were 2 administrators that helped me identify 10 African-American male college students for this study. And the criteria for this included they had to be on the dean's list, 3.5 or better, considered campus leaders, classification between sophomores and seniors, and on scholarship. My methodology, as an African-American male, I knew what it was like to attend predominantly or dominantly white institutions, undergrad and grad. As an African-American male, I knew what it was like to work at a dominantly white institution. I had to be very careful not to take that lens into the interview process. I got 2 minutes left. Woo! All right, so my interview protocol included interviews and follow-ups and coding all of this on my own. And so here's what I found. This was my aha. And so there are 4 themes that were revealed. Support, which was from family, friends, faculty, and staff. That also included self-awareness, understanding that you're Black and what that means and the stereotypes that you were faced and not letting that hamper what you're doing. Attitude is about the mindset and determination of the African-American man and why you're there, the goals that you've set aside for yourself. And organization. Organization included being prepared, knowing when to go to class, and not just go to class, but what was expected of you. But the aha under organization, they all cited the use of binders as a reason for their success, and binders that they brought from them from high school. Got 1 minute left. Thank you. All right, and so I came up with this model, the Black Male Excellence Model. And support is interlaced with self-awareness and attitude. The attitude and organization supports attitude and support. And so here's what I want you to know, or what our campuses should do differently. Organization, we talk about the study tips that should be included when you go through your college journey, but no one talks about organization and what that looks like. And so that's a recommendation for higher ed. I need to be done. And then the last piece was anti-Blackness in the Christian institution. Opposition to and hatred of Black people by whites and Blacks is what that anti-Blackness means. And at our Christian institutions, they talk about Jesus' love, which means we are love. It doesn't necessarily translate that you're not racist, okay? And so for our institutions of higher education, you need to do more than just teach Jesus' love and we love you. It's about putting yourself in the shoes of those that feel that they are marginalized and there's no one that can speak for them. And so that's my presentation. So for my thank you, I definitely want to thank my committee, Dr. Mari Luna De La Rosa, who is my content specialist, and she added a lot of meaning to what I do and helped me understand and frame that I looked at a lot of things through the colonizers, and that I needed to be that person to go out there and create this new meaning of what it looks like as an African-American male person. To Dr. Joy Hoffman, who was my methodologist, she challenged me to really look at what I was trying to achieve through my study and through my data and what it was saying. Then, of course, Dr. Alex John, thank you for always being that voice of reason, helping me see the light and helping me understand that you can get through this. And I definitely want to thank my family, definitely the 3 individuals that are here. And I mentioned my BFF, Janine. We have 3 daughters together, and we knew what, she may have known what this was going to do when I started this journey. I had no idea, but she took care of 3 beautiful daughters while I was on this journey. And so I say thank you because you took on a lot of that. And then for my mom, who said that you will go to college one day. So thank you for planting that seed in my head. And then to my cousin, Wanda, when I needed a place to stay while I was here in California and when I needed food, you were there for me. And so I say thank you. And that's the example of what I mean by support. And that's what these African-American men needed when they were in the program, is support from family and friends. There are some people watching online, hello, and they saw me post online every year for the last few years that I'm at Milo's coffee shop in the same corner with the same books, doing the same thing that I was doing the previous week. And so you no longer have to see me post on Facebook that I'm at Milo's coffee shop with the same books doing the same thing. And so I say thank you to all those individuals that prayed for me, that supported me, that told me to get my butt in gear and get this done. And so I say thank you to all those individuals that were there for me. Last but not least, the parents are not online, but I spoke with the parents of Chavares Block, who was a student of mine at a dominantly white institution. And they gave me permission to use his name in my dissertation and in the presentation. Chavares Block was a student in my classroom, freshman year experience program, very quiet, was engaged when we did our service learning project. And that's when I saw him come alive. One day, he contacted me and said, Mr. Hamilton, I need you to help me with something. I'm stuck. And so I said yes. And I showed him exactly what to do, and it was something simple. And he said, you are the only instructor that was willing to take the time to show me how to do this. So thank you. And that bothered me. That bothered me because I knew that there were only a handful, maybe, of African Americans on that campus. And so I was the only one that was there to help him. And when we're at institutions that depend on students staying, this could have become the make or break for that student. And so later that semester, Chavares was shot and murdered on campus, and not the intended target. And so I do this for him because he said that you were the only one that was willing to help me. And so just imagine if it was more than just me that wanted to help him, especially my white counterparts. And so I definitely say thank you to his parents for allowing me to, one, teach him, but to tell his story. And so that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Well, I love it when a dissertation title is also metaphor for life, when you think about wilderness and the challenges of a doctoral program. Many of you know this very well. Others of you will find out very soon. The wilderness and what does it mean to come out of it? Well, Dr. Melissa Laraway has a wonderful study that she's done, a phenomenological study on wilderness and orientation. And so she is going to come out and share. I know many people, and the millions who are watching online right now, are waiting to hear. Thank you for showing up. Without any further ado, Dr. Melissa Laraway.
One less thing to hold, right? There are balancing too many things here. Well, thank you. I am incredibly passionate about learning through experiences and development that comes through experiences, and have been involved in these kinds of programs in the past, and that is really what drove this study for me, because it's a personal passion of mine. And I think I tried to squeeze a lot into this, but I've timed it, and that's why I'm going to stick to my notes so I don't get off. So hopefully I will stick on time, but I try to squeeze a lot in. So hang on, and we're going to jump in and start talking about my study. Orientation programs address the academic and social adjustment challenges students face by providing opportunities to build relationships with their peers, upper-class students, and faculty members. Whoops, I forgot to forward this. Okay. A very prominent wilderness researcher, Bell, in 2014, did an assessment that revealed that wilderness orientation participants developed significantly higher levels of social support compared to other pre-orientation experiences, such as athletics or service programs. This finding holds significance due to the fact that many incoming students have a greater fear of social integration than they do their academic preparedness. While these settings may provide a unique environment for learning, theories rarely explain how merely being in the wilderness can bring about growth and development. Participants provide anecdotal evidence, but there's limited empirical research on how development occurs. Additionally, much of the research has been quantitative, with little known about the components that contribute to transformation or understanding how participants translate and build upon those outcomes after their experience. All of this led to the development of my research question, which is, how have students from a wilderness orientation program interpret their experiences, and how do they perceive the impact of the program on their overall college career? Because the question was to explore a shared experience, a phenomenological method was appropriate. And of the three phenomenological approaches, hermeneutic allowed the interpretation of the lived experience. Institutions offer a variety of options, including climbing, kayaking, backpacking, and multi-element adventures. And in order to have a sufficient number of participants, I needed to utilize all of those. I interviewed 10 students at 2 different institutions. Each program offers optional participation in a program that has been established for 10 or more years. And their trips were similar in duration, region, and physical intensity. Those who participated in a wilderness orientation prior to their freshman year and now in their final year of college were invited to participate. I conducted hour-long virtual interviews, and after my data analysis, followed up with each of the participants regarding the emerged themes and to hear any additional thoughts. Each of the sessions were transcribed, and I utilized in vivo software to organize the data and then analyze the data using Moustakis' method of data analysis. There were many emerged themes, but there were some evident trends among the group. They were accomplishment, self-discovery, mentorship, and community. The theme of accomplishment is that students felt that through their participation, they both succeeded in a difficult task and were subsequently more confident in facing new challenges. And I've included some quotes so that you can hear directly from them. So one student said, with regard to accomplishment, the hardest thing I've ever done was kayaking for hours and hours into these huge waves, soaking wet, cold, and hungry. So it was legitimately, physically, and probably personally the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I think that was invaluable to show a person coming into college what they can do. The theme of self-discovery was shown in that participants developed an increased awareness of themselves, much of this occurring from the solo, as well as learning about the importance of rest, reflection, and balance. Mentorship involves the interaction with trip guides and faculty. Many of the students reflected on how their guides helped to identify strengths and weaknesses. This student reflected on how her guide challenged her. She said it was really hard, and so I think that the orientation leaders pushed us in a comforting way. I would come across terrain that if I were with any other group or by myself, I would be like, oh man, that's kind of scary, or whoa, I'm not gonna do this. But they really made us feel comfortable and really pushed us to discover that what we can actually do, and it was a sense of confidence moving forward. The theme of community was the most prominent and seen through every element of the experience. Community was developed because of this shared experience, as well as spending time with one another apart from their typical surroundings. One student said, oh gosh, this doesn't give you the luxury of the social veneer. I think it rips that away pretty quickly. Maybe it was especially exacerbated on our trip because we had such miserable weather. Everyone was miserable at the same time, and you very quickly stop caring about yourself and whether other people are cool or not. You're just there together. So that level of comfort, I think, is a lot that people really only have with their immediate family or people that they're very close to. The common denominator of these adventure programs is that they involve physical activity and are away from the typical environment. It was the influence of these components within the wilderness setting that uniquely provided the opportunity for these emerged themes to occur. However, it's also a concern that some students may not have access. It may be limited by finances, physical ability, or even unfamiliarity or fear of this experience. Each participant expressed that their motivation for pursuing this experience was to establish friendships, and they expressed that what they thought that made this program so helpful is that they had to rely on one another in order for the trip to be successful. I guess I talked faster when I was practicing. Participants also experienced great personal growth. The solo emerged as a memorable part of the students' trip by providing opportunity to become more attuned to themselves, their natural surroundings, and their relationships with others. In addition to friendships that helped with the college transition, participants developed a deeper understanding or a deeper confidence in encountering new experiences, and this was seen through students being more confident in approaching others with different values or ideas, as well as pursuing study abroad or travel experiences. There are only a few studies that examine the effect of participation in a wilderness orientation experience and what it has on the college setting. And there is little known about the components of the experience that contribute most to student growth. And through the study, I had the opportunity through these exploratory questions to inform these gaps. And I was able to hear why students chose to participate, their perceived gains and most memorable moments, and how the trip can have influenced subsequent years. So we'll just end it there. A few more things, but we'll end it there. I don't have a slide for my thank yous, and I'm afraid I'm going to get emotional, so I won't drag this out too long. But I know I've been crying. I have. If you know StrengthsFinder, well, of course you all know StrengthsFinder. Silly question, silly comment. So I have empathy. So I've actually been sitting in my chair, like wiping tears as you all have been up here sharing. So if I can actually see this to read. I thank you to the people who've committed to this work. These kinds of programs take a big commitment from an institution financially, with liability. Sometimes it's written into a job description, and sometimes it's volunteer. People are taking vacation time. And they are participating in these trips and investing in these students' lives. And they are transformative experiences. So I thank you to those people. Now I can't, I really can't see. To my committee for hanging with me. I'm part of the 09 cohort, and there are a number of us here tonight, and it's been a long time. Thank you, Alex, for hanging with me. And for Tabitha for joining my committee midway, and to Rob Ribby, who is not here, but he is the director of Honey Rock Camp at Wheaton, and he was my content specialist and understands these programs so intimately. So thank you for sticking with me. There were so many times that I would email, oh, I'm back in it, Alex. I'm back on track, and then I would kind of fade out, and but it's finally finished. So, and for those of you who are starting this process, get through that first half. That's like the worst part. This part, the research part, is so fun. And so hang on to one another and just really push through and get through that first half. To my cohort, some of us who are in this room and some are downstairs, we all talk about this dissertation portion, but we did this all together, even through classes, and that's such a big part of this process as well. And as we all kind of spread out, well, I thought, oh, this person's finishing, that person's finishing, and by the time I get there, no one's going to be left. And there's, 6 or 7 of us. So it's such a joy, Dan and Kevin, to be in this room and to celebrate this with you. To my back home, to my supervisor, my colleagues, and my staff, who gave me the space and understanding. I know I wasn't always maybe the best colleague or supervisor in these final months in this, but thank you for your patience. My parents who are here and my family who are watching online, hopefully you better be. You didn't always necessarily know what questions to ask or understand what I was talking about, but you supported me through it. And even if there were times where you thought, I don't know, we keep hearing this, I don't know if she's going to finish, I appreciate that you continued to encourage me and you always believed that I could do this, so thank you. And again, those of you who are in the midst of this process or beginning of this process, as others have shared, gather that group of people around you who will ask you those questions. I'm trying to do this with a friend and colleague of mine right now, and trying gently to figure out, okay, let me ask her what she's worked on today, and sharing tips, but it can be such a lonely process. And I always heard that, and then when you get there, it's really true. So send an email, write a paragraph, do something every day, but just don't lose that momentum. And you will very soon be up here as well. So thank you.
Done. We have one more speaker, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Daniel Green. The world is increasingly getting smaller and smaller as we think about other nations and nation states. Dan has pursued a dissertation topic that took him to the People's Republic of China, doing research there, several trips to China, meeting with students, conducting a narrative study. And Dan, it was such a joy to work with you, and I knew you could get this done, and I can't wait to hear what you have to share. So without any further ado, Dr. Daniel Green. I don't know.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see if we can do. We'll see if we can do one of these buttons. This topic is based on looking at first student generation experience of students at a private institution in central China. And a lot of people would ask me, why China? Why you're a kid from Chicago who's now living in LA, what is it about China that you were trying to do? And the answer to that is China's important to all of us. The amount of time that they are putting in as it comes to higher education, the fact that there's so much money being pushed into China, and the fact that a lot of these Chinese students are now coming over to the U.S., not only studying here, but some of them are living here permanently. It's a country in transition, and I love a quote from a researcher in 2014, Zhao, who said that it is a country that certainly has national standards, a very strong curriculum, yet its higher education system is still trying to figure itself out and looking for the future. This seems to be going along all by itself. So there's great investment on this particular group. The graduates are increasing. You're seeing here 6 million in 98 to 33 million in 2012. And there's more students studying abroad than any other country in China. They're sending some 700,000 to other countries. A quick definition of private institutions in China versus the U.S. You're seeing in the U.S., the best institutions tend to be private. That would be your Harvard, your Yale, your Stanford. In China, the best are often the public institutions. That's where the money and the support is. It would be like a Peking University, a Fudan University. Private institutions in China are also called independent, and they tend to be of lesser quality. These are third-tier institutions. They're sometimes called minban in Mandarin, and it's a lot of people who are poor. They have to pay the full price. Their grades on National College Entrance Exam tend to be poor, and they have very few options. Oftentimes, they're first-generation students, which was my theatrical framework, was first-generation students. These are students who don't get the same advice as other students get. They're often feeling like they're out of place, and they have less encouragement. For methodology, I use narrative inquiry. We are less concerned about the certainty of every piece, rather giving the person who's being interviewed a sense of agency and letting their story unfold. I used as a lens Pierre Bourdieu, who is a French researcher. He's most known for his work with capital, and specifically of the capitals that you're seeing on there. I was concerned about cultural capital, and there's a breakdown of various states. The objectified state is what you own. You have another state that talks about your character, but I was interested in the institutionalized state, the milestones, and also the type of level that you'll reach in education. Particularly on that, he's looking at social status. How do you get from one social status to another? A secondary lens was the use of Patricia McDonough at UCLA and her work with the idea of college knowledge. Are you prepared for college? I went to central China. It was a very large province that I called Central Province. And my institution is unique in the sense that in 1998, there were 300 people. Today, there's north of 28,000 students enrolled during that time period. They also claim to have more foreign faculty speaking English than any other university in China, with 150. For participants, I interviewed 22, 16 were female, average age was 20, juniors and seniors mostly, but if you look at their Gaokao, their national exam score, it's a 420, which is in the 56th percentile, very, very low, which meant that that they had not too many options. For data collection, I had visited the campus 3 times. This last time in December 2017, I did most of my interviews and then followed up electronically through email. The biggest reaction was a sense of regret from these students. They really did not have a lot of options about what they would be doing in the future, and they really felt that they were kind of somewhat tied with their particular options. You could see what they're saying here. I knew when I got my grades, I just cried and cried and cried and cried. Someone else said my parents were nervous, that makes me nervous. High school was all about being nervous for me. And someone said, I got sick taking the college test. Of my 22 interviewers, 3 talked to me about being in the hospital at some point studying for the national exam due to ulcers or something like this. This is an example of a national exam. It's 2 days in June. They're all-day events, and they are really brutal, and students get quite nervous. The reaction to this is interesting. I felt like I had no other choice to go to this school. I just ran out of choices. I always thought I would go to a better school. Well, what do you do when you don't have many choices? You try to stay positive, and that's what a lot of these students tried to do, is remain as positive as they could. I looked at other schools. This is the right one for me. I'm meeting many foreigners. At least I'm going to other schools as a possibility, and this university was not very strict with your test scores. So they managed their expectations as best as they could, and they overcame the stigma of being at a third-tier university. They thought it was a good place to learn on campus. They got involved with various campus activities. They were anxious about the future, but I always like to say, who in the West, what college junior or senior do you know in the West is not anxious about the future? They're worried about making money, getting jobs, how they're going to compare to other students in the future. That they're going a little quick, but it said, oh, I'm worried about making money, but who would not be today? Let me just talk to you about policy implications, because it is important. For policy implications, they should probably, thank you so much. God is speaking to me. No, I want to go back to policy implications, but it's basically this. Taking a look at the scores that are happening in the province, the poor provinces is a big issue. Taking a look at female parity in Chinese higher education. I don't talk about it today, but a lot of the research was about women who said, should I go to college or get married? These are 18-year-old women, and that was their choice in life. They thought the latest they would ever get married was 25, the men were at 35. And then finally, a sense of support for not only being prepared for college, but also psychological and social support. All of those can ricochet, and I truly think what's going to happen in China is already in many ways affecting the rest of the world, and this will certainly be the case. Hey, folks, let's talk about thank you, shall we? It's time, right? You're so happy. I've never seen you happier tonight. Rock on. Okay, so first I have to acknowledge what's happening with the 2009 cohort. We are sliding into home base, 2009 cohort. I am so happy. So I will say this, and I'm going to take out my phone just for a couple of notes. I will say that what they end up saying to you all the time in this program is, after you finish your coursework and your comp exams, whatever you do, do not take a break. And guess what I did? I took a break. I took a leave of absence, I hung out, and that was the worst thing to keep your momentum. So I'm really happy that we did get through this. I have to acknowledge the Chinese students and their parents. The stories that they told are just so evocative, and the stuff that these people went through was really just quite amazing. I also need to acknowledge the faculty at APU. Listen, we have lots of choices to go to get your PhD. There's a lot of schools out there. I met at a lot of schools. I talked to a lot of people. This happened to be in my backyard of Los Angeles, but the faculty I have found at APU are caring. They want to help you, and they are so much nicer than faculty at other universities. I truly mean that. I'm saying that as a faculty member at another university. And of that university, Carnegie Mellon, I have to acknowledge my deans and all of the staff and many of the students, many of my Chinese students and my domestic students at Carnegie Mellon, both here on the West Coast as well as the main campus in Pittsburgh, who've been a source of inspiration for me, who've been very, very supportive. My friends and family over the last 9 years, yes, I'm saying 9 years, have been really terrific and very helpful. And if you go to that last slide, you don't have to, but it's my committee. Luckily, at this point, I think I know their names. Dr. Alex June, who's just been terrific and has been such a support for me. And I know it seems weird because we're all saying, you know, how great Alex is. He really is that great, but he was the person who made me think outside of the borders of the United States. He made it possible for all of us to think about that possibility. And originally, my study was going to be on higher education in the Middle East. If you want to talk to me over coffee, I'm happy to explain why that's an important area as well. But he handed me a pamphlet one day in his office and said, you should really take a look at what's happening at this campus in central China, and that really changed things. He introduced me to the second member of my committee, Dr. Frances Wu, who the first time I met her and talked about this, we were in her office here on the APU campus. For 4 hours we chatted about this topic. And she was the person who said, if you want to know about China and you don't know, the first thing you should do is go to China and meet these people. So she sent me and put me on a research team of hers, and I didn't even have my research question yet, but she stuck me on there and she believed in me, and she has been just so remarkable for me. She introduced me to my third and final member, Dr. John Medendorf, who is from Michigan State University, who I met on that research team in China. He's a true Renaissance man. He speaks 6 languages. He's been all over the world. Luckily for me, one of the languages he speaks is Mandarin, so I got to learn and discover China through not only some tour guides, but also through John and his experience. The people I need to thank the most are my immediate family. My daughter Piper was only a few months old when I started this program. My wife and I like to joke that she's never known us not being a student, so it's been wonderful. She also helped me with my bibliography, so she was really helpful with that, which was great. My 4-year-old son Spencer was born right when I started the writing process, so he and Piper have been so patient because I've been traveling so much, and they're like, oh, Dad, what'd you bring me from China? So I really appreciate that I'm raising my children very effectively. And finally, my best friend and my partner, Jennifer, who wanted to get a PhD before I started this process and no longer wants to, but I do want to say that in my own head, Jennifer has a PhD. She's going to share it with me. You have been wonderful, and so has APU. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Greenwell. Congratulations to all of our candidates today. We are finished now. The other group's going to come back, so maybe a quick stretch break, and then we will commence very, very soon.
You may be seated. So tonight, as we hood our graduates, I want to explain the process of what's happening. So the doctoral hood is a symbol that goes back to the 12th century European universities, when clerics and scholars were distinguished from lay people by the hoods that they wore. And so your hood carries on that tradition as a symbol of your faith, a symbol of your scholarship, a symbol of your achievement and commitment, and your intent to continue your scholarship in your career. And it's also, I think, a way that your own personal faith has been woven into this journey. There are two different colors on the hood. So the dark blue velvet indicates the Doctor of Philosophy degree, and the light blue velvet indicates the Doctor of Education degree. And the red and black lining that you'll see on the hood indicates that you are a proud graduate of Azusa Pacific University. So by presenting you with this hood today, we're honoring your achievement, we're celebrating with you the culmination of a journey, and we're also giving you some gifts, a nameplate for your desk that recognizes this achievement, and also a folder that recognizes from the alumni office that you're now an alumna of the university. So congratulations to each one. We're going to call you by name, and the chair of the dissertation and I will do the hooding. So first of all, Dr. Meg Dumez. And Dr. Allison Ash. Dr. Kevin Hamilton. Dr. Melissa Laraway. Dr. Dan Green. Dr. Liz Rennick. Dr. Matthew Vetter.
I'm a doctor, L'Oreal.
And you might want to stay up here, Karen. And Brian Jaworski, Dr. Brian Jaworski. Dr. Kim Ladd. Dr. Lucas Rux. So tonight is a bittersweet occasion for us. It's a huge celebration for our students, but it is also the last day that longtime faculty member Dr. Eileen Holm will be with us. She is moving into some new opportunities in consulting within the broader scope of higher education. She's been at APU as one of our colleagues since 2005, after we persuaded her to leave the VP for Student Life position at Baylor University to join our faculty in the doctoral programs. Eileen is one of the most innovative leaders in the field of higher education. She's a recipient of numerous awards from our university, including Inspirational Faculty of the Year Award, the Chip Anderson Visionary Strengths Award. She is a gifted and passionate teacher, a curious scholar, a dedicated mentor to her dissertation students, a tireless encourager of others, and a dear, dear friend to us as faculty. Our doctoral programs have been stamped indelibly by her presence, and we are forever grateful for her investment in us. Eileen, will you come up here? This is for you. We love you. We will miss you, and we're forever grateful. Thank you. Eileen, we wish God's very best for you as you move into these new opportunities. We expect really good things to happen throughout the field of higher education. As we close tonight, Dr. Karen Longman is the director of our Ph.D. program, and she will be closing us in prayer. Karen?
I also want to acknowledge that Eileen was a hugely important shaper of the EDD program. And so all of you here who have watched the EDD program be developed and are now in it, we owe a huge vote of thanks to Eileen for that contribution to our department as well. Well, it's been a fun night. I said downstairs, a lot of joy, a good amount of relief, quite a bit of pride, in the best sense of that word. So I was thinking about a benediction. What does the word benediction mean? We see it often, but we don't think about it. But it means what? Bene, good or well, and diction, speaking. So we have about 200 people in this room. And I think for the 10 who are up here, some of you have watched them graduate from elementary school, junior high, middle high, senior high, college, master's degree, and here we are. So I'm going to just ask you to hold your hands, and the 200 of us who are here will put wind under their wings, because who knows? These people will touch thousands, maybe tens of thousands of lives over the next 20, 30, 40 years, and we're thankful. So whatever your faith tradition, I want you to just visualize putting wind under their wings and giving them a blessing as we send them out, okay? So you are the creator of the universe. There's a sovereign God who cares about each one here. And we stop, and as we think about these faces, and some of you know them so well and love them so deeply, we just ask for a special anointing on their lives, that you would use the capacity, the perseverance, the tenacity, the knowledge they have gained, the networking they have built to really do amazing things in a world that's full of need, Thank you for the gift of education, for the freedom that we have to be educated, for the resources and the support systems that have brought us to this place tonight. And we do, the 200 people gathered here, ask for just an outpouring of blessings. So wind under their wings as we enjoy dessert together and then scatter in our different ways, but stay connected in spirit and in heart. In Jesus' name, amen.